The world adored them. A picture-perfect Hollywood couple, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. They were the golden standard, the pair that made us believe in true love. But what if I told you the truth behind their 50-year marriage was far darker than anyone ever imagined? Picture this, an affair so explosive it could have torn them apart, a battle with addiction that nearly ruined everything, and a family tragedy that would leave scars for decades. Joanne Woodward, once a bright-eyed ingenue, would soon discover that the man she loved wasn't the flawless hero everyone thought he was. Paul Newman, the saintly superstar with those piercing blue eyes, was hiding a world of secrets, ones that even his closest friends barely understood. The public never knew the full story, the late-night drinking binges, the shocking affair with a cocktail waitress, or the emotional toll of losing their beloved son to addiction. But through it all, Joanne stood by him. She fought for her family, for her marriage, even when the world whispered, "It's over." The truth is, theirs was never a fairy tale romance. It was a battleground of love, loyalty, betrayal, and heartbreaking loss. So what really went on behind closed doors? How did a couple who seemed invincible crumble under the weight of their own demons, yet survive long enough to leave a legacy that would defy the test of time? Stay tuned, because what you're about to learn will change everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's perfect couple. And trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Imagine this, a 9-year-old girl at the Gone with the Wind premiere in 1939, boldly marching up to Laurence Olivier and sitting on his lap like she owned the place. That's how Joanne Woodward introduced herself to the world. Fearless, unafraid to take what she wanted. Born in 1930 in Thomasville, Georgia, Joanne wasn't just a small-town girl. Her mother, obsessed with Hollywood, named her after Joan Crawford, hoping one day her daughter would shine just as brightly. Little did anyone know that spark would burn hotter than anyone could have imagined. Joanne didn't stay in Georgia for long. As the family moved across the state, young Joanne honed her love for acting, performing in school plays, and becoming a local theater sensation. By the time she graduated high school in Greenville, she had already set her sights on something bigger, Hollywood. But first, Louisiana State University, where she studied drama and trained with some of the best. After that, it was off to New York to attend the prestigious Actors Studio, a place where future legends were made. But despite all the training, all the ambition, her first brush with fame was a roller coaster of struggle and grit. In 1952, she made her television debut on Robert Montgomery Presents, a tiny step in a journey filled with auditions, rejection, and survival. By 1955, Joanne made her film debut in Count 3 and Pray, but Hollywood wasn't handing her fame on a silver platter. No, she had to fight tooth and nail for it. And that's when she met him, Paul Newman, the man who would change her life forever. But it wasn't just the start of her career, it was the start of something much more complicated. What happened next would leave everyone questioning everything they thought they knew. You've heard the stories of star-crossed lovers meeting in the most unlikely of places, but this one, it's Hollywood legend. Joanne Woodward, just 23, struggling to break free from the shadows of Broadway when out of nowhere, fate drops a bombshell. In 1953, she's cast as the understudy for the role of Picnic on Broadway, and backstage she meets a man who will change her life forever, Paul Newman, the man who at that moment was already a rising star but still very much off the market. Newman, already married at the time, wasn't exactly the ideal romantic prospect, but the chemistry between them was undeniable. Their first encounter, electric, a chance meeting that would spiral into an affair that no one saw coming. Fast forward to 1955 and Joanne's film career is kicking into gear. Her debut in Count 3 and Pray marked the start of her climb, but it was her Oscar-winning role in The Three Faces of Eve 1957 that catapulted her into Hollywood's upper echelon. In one fell swoop, Joanne was on her way to becoming one of the industry's brightest stars. But as her career skyrocketed, her personal life was about to collide head-on with Hollywood's harsh realities. Just as her fame grew, so did her feelings for Paul Newman. And despite both of them knowing the implications of their burgeoning connection, they couldn't stay away. By 1958, Joanne and Paul's affair had blossomed into something more. He was ready to leave his first wife. She was ready for a new chapter. But what was supposed to be a romantic fairy tale, it was far from it. In fact, it was about to ignite a firestorm of controversy. You think you know the story of their love, Hollywood's most adored couple, married in a whirlwind romance. But here's the truth. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a battle. After Paul Newman finalized his divorce from his first wife, he and Joanne Woodward tied the knot in a Las Vegas chapel on January 29, 1958. From the outside, it looked like a dream. Two stars, madly in love, starting their life together. But the reality? Much more complicated. While they built their family, Joanne becoming stepmother to Paul's 3 children from his previous marriage, and then giving birth to 3 daughters of their own, the tension started to simmer beneath the surface. Everyone saw the perfect couple on the red carpet, but behind closed doors, the cracks were already forming. Paul's career was reaching new heights, and Joanne, though successful, was caught in the whirlwind of her own dreams and struggles. Hollywood glamour? It wasn't enough to protect their fragile reality. The couple settled in Westport, Connecticut, Connecticut, away from the noise of Los Angeles. They wanted to give their children a normal life, free from the constant pressure of the industry. Yet despite this retreat, the cracks kept widening. There was something darker lurking beneath the surface, the undeniable tension in their marriage. While they were creating this ideal family life, something was quietly eroding it from within. And it wasn't just the pressure of fame or the juggling act of their careers. It was something far more personal. Paul Newman's struggles with alcoholism were becoming harder to ignore. He was drowning in it, and no one, not even Joanne, could stop it. But Joanne, ever the fighter, chose to stay. What kept her by his side? And how long could she keep pretending everything was perfect? The truth was about to come crashing in. You might think that fame and fortune could solve every problem, but for Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, nothing could prepare them for the gut-wrenching loss that would test their marriage like nothing before. They were more than just lovers. They were partners, collaborators, creating magic together both on and off the screen. But that didn't mean their story was all rosy. Far from it. By the late 1960s, they were inseparable, appearing in 16 films together, with one of the most iconic being Rachel in 1968. It wasn't just a professional triumph, it was personal. They were both nominated for Oscars, a rare feat for a married couple. But while their careers soared, the darkness crept in. Tragedy would strike, and it would change everything. In 1978, their world was shattered when Paul's son, Scott Newman, died from a drug and alcohol overdose at the age of 28. The grief was suffocating. Scott's death didn't just affect Paul, it devastated their entire family, and the pain echoed in their marriage. The public rarely saw the raw, vulnerable side of Paul Newman, but this tragedy broke him. In the wake of their son's death, the Newmans didn't retreat, they fought back. Together they created the Scott Newman Center, dedicated to fighting drug addiction, and the Hole in the Wall gang camp, giving children with life-threatening illnesses a place to find joy. It was their way of channeling their pain into purpose. But as the years passed, the cracks in their marriage only deepened. Paul and Joanne were survivors, but even the strongest foundations can crack under the weight of loss, and what happened next would set them on a path no one could have predicted. What single decision do you think actually saved their marriage? Tell us your theory below. The loving couple who defied the odds. But here's the bombshell no one talks about. Their marriage was anything but easy. In fact, it was a ticking time bomb. The public adored them, but behind the curtain, the cracks were already showing. While they were hailed as Hollywood royalty, Paul's secret battle with alcoholism was consuming him. Joanne, who had always been the epitome of grace, was pushed to her limits. Long stretches of tension, late-night arguments, and countless moments where their marriage hung by a thread. This was the reality. Paul's drinking wasn't a casual habit, it was an obsession. Beer, whiskey, you name it. And with every binge, their love teetered on the brink. Joanne had a choice: stick it out or walk away. The stakes were high, yet even though she was emotionally drained, she made one rule that would change the trajectory of their relationship forever. She told Paul, "Get sober or I'm leaving." Most couples would have shattered under the pressure, but Joanne was no ordinary woman. She wasn't willing to let go without a fight. She was fiercely loyal, and despite the endless temptations and betrayals, she chose to stand by Paul, hoping he would conquer his demons. But the stakes were rising. No one knew just how far this dark chapter would stretch. The truth, their marriage wasn't the fairy tale everyone thought it was. And it was about to get even more complicated when the affair with Nancy Bacon made headlines. The one thing that would almost destroy everything. Hold on to your seat, because this is where the story takes a jaw-dropping turn. While Joanne Woodward was doing everything in her power to save her marriage, Paul Newman was hiding something devastating. You think you know Hollywood scandals? This one was the most explosive of them all. Enter Nancy Bacon, a cocktail waitress turned socialite, and the woman who would nearly tear their entire world apart. The affair started in the mid-1960s, right at the peak of Paul Newman's fame. The rumors? They were everywhere. Nancy Bacon and Legs was what the tabloids called her, and everyone in Hollywood knew about the torrid love affair between her and Paul. But what made this affair even more toxic? Paul's lie. He would tell Joanne he was working late, when in reality, he was spending nights at Nancy's home, in a secret world of passion and betrayal. Joanne wasn't blind. She had heard the whispers, seen the signs, and when she discovered the truth, it was gut-wrenching. But instead of throwing in the towel and walking away, Joanne did something few could ever imagine. She chose to stay and fight. But why? What kept her bound to a man who had shattered her trust in the worst way possible? The affair dragged on for nearly 2 years, with Paul promising to end it every time, yet it lingered. The pain? Excruciating. The tension? Intolerable. But Joanne wasn't just a victim, she was a survivor. And despite the heartbreak, she chose to confront the demons, to fight for the family and the life they had built. But as the affair unraveled, it was clear. This marriage wasn't as unbreakable as they made it seem. And what Paul was about to confess would blow the lid off everything they'd fought so hard to preserve. The truth, much darker than anyone could have imagined. If you were in Joanne's place, would you have stayed after the rumored affair period? Why or why not? comment your view. Forget everything you thought you knew about Paul Newman's perfect life because the truth is about to come crashing down. You've seen the glossy interviews, the award-winning speeches, the charming blue eyes, and the smooth charisma. But behind the fame, behind the smiles, was a man who carried his sins and regrets like a heavy weight. And after his death, the world would learn the shocking, unfiltered truth from his own words. In his posthumous memoir, The Extraordinary Life of an Ordinary Man, Paul Newman laid bare the darkest secrets of his life, the secrets he took to his grave. He didn't hold back. In brutal, raw detail, Newman confessed what everyone suspected but never dared to say. His marriage wasn't the blissful love story everyone painted it to be. Instead, it was a firestorm of passion, infidelity, and emotional wreckage. He described his early years with Joanne as a drenched-in-passion whirlwind, a love so intense it was almost suffocating. In one candid admission, he even called their life together a "fut love nest." But those words weren't just a reflection of their lustful connection. They were a grim foreshadowing of what was to come. Newman openly admitted to infidelity, a truth that had been buried under years of public adoration. And then there was his infamous line, "Why go out for a hamburger when you have steak at home?" That might have been his most jarring confession. It was a cruel, biting metaphor for how he viewed the women he cheated with, including Nancy Bacon. It wasn't just an affair. It was a declaration that, for Paul Newman, loyalty was as fleeting as his next drink. But these revelations weren't just shocking. They were a window into the guilt and remorse that haunted him in his final years. Paul Newman, the golden boy, had finally come clean. But what would Joanne think when she read these words? And how would the world reconcile this brutal truth with the image of Hollywood's perfect couple? Fading lights, final reckonings, the ending everyone thought they knew but didn't. Close friends say Joanne's last act wasn't about applause, it was about quiet courage. Reports suggest 2007 brought a cruel double blow. She faced memories' slow fade, while he confronted a diagnosis that changed everything. Their Westport home, once alive with laughter, turned into a sanctuary of stillness. There are whispers of hushed conversations and handwritten notes taped to mirrors. Nothing grand, just the small rituals of love that outlived the spotlight. Paul's passing in 2008 closed a chapter the public wanted to keep perfect. Joanne stepped back, choosing silence over spectacle. It's rumored the Manhattan penthouse sale signaled a final goodbye to the myth, not to the man. Their story, as pieced together from memoir pages and family reflections, isn't a fairy tale, it's a survival tale. Allegations surfaced over the years about temptations, long nights, and choices that cut deep. There is no official confirmation on the most private details, but the pattern is clear: passion, distance, devotion, fracture, break, repair, repeat, and somehow, endurance. Her strength wasn't loud, it stitched itself into ordinary days. A self-stitched Oscar dress in '57 foreshadowed everything. Make it yourself, hold it together. When the credits rolled, the legacy wasn't perfection, it was honesty earned the hard way. So here's the takeaway. The perfect couple was a projection. The real achievement was two imperfect people wrestling with fame, desire, grief, and time, and refusing to let the world define their ending. Before you go, tap into our previous upload. It's the intimate moment when a golden age icon finally spoke after losing her most iconic screen partner, raw, reflective, and unexpectedly connected to today's story. You'll know it when you see it on the channel page. If this deep dive moved you, subscribe and stay close. The next episode traces a silent pact that nearly collapsed a legendary romance and the single decision that saved it. This is Vintage Spotlight. Yesterday's legends, today's revelations, and the most surprising connection? It's waiting in that last upload, just one click away.